written production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.
Okay, we ready? I'll call this meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to our board meeting today. I'm Sue Wilson, President of the 2021 Board of Directors. During this meeting, we request everyone please turn off their cell phones or put them in vibrate mode. Please remember that face masks are required at this meeting. Effective January 2017, we started taping our board meetings, and by entering this room and or participating in the meeting, you are hereby granting permission to the RCSC to record and use on video and audio tape your image, likeness, and voice. You are also waiving any claims that you may have against the RCSC for using your image, likeness, and voice in connection with the video and audio taping of this meeting and broadcast and or publication of such meeting for any purpose of the RCSC. In accordance with our corporate documents, a board meeting is generally held the second Monday and the last Thursday of each month, with the exception of July and August, where there are no board meetings. Before we begin the business at hand, I'd like to introduce you to your board of directors and our management personnel. To my right, Treasurer Sheila Rooney. Morning. Director Steve Collins.
Good morning.
Director Karen McAdam.
Good morning.
Director Rich Hofer.
Good morning.
To my left, Vice President Mike Egge.
Good morning.
Secretary Dale Lair.
Good morning.
Director Darla Akins.
Good morning.
Director Dan Schroeder.
Good morning.
And Marcia Johnson, our Corporate Executive Coordinator.
Good morning.
Our senior management here today, Jan Eck, our General Manager. Bill Cook, our Director of Finance. Mike Whipprood, Director of Buildings and Infrastructure. Chris Herring, Director of Operations. Brian Duthu, Director of Golf and Grounds. Jolynn Higgins, Communications and RCSC Marketing Coordinator. I also want to recognize Alan Kleinhans and Jim Moore, our audiovisual technicians, who operate all the audio at this and other events, and Mike Dvorak up in the booth on video camera. All right, Secretary Lair, do we have a board quorum?
Madam President, we do have a quorum.
Okay. We have the agenda. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Madam President, I so move.
Okay, Secretary Lair, second.
I second.
Treasurer Rooney, any discussion on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, I will ask for a voice vote. Please signify to approve by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Approval of our minutes from the March 8th, 2021 meeting. I need a motion.
So moved.
Treasurer Rooney, second.
Second.
Director Akins, any discussion on the minutes? Okay. I'll ask for all who approve to signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed, say nay.
Oh, sorry. I said aye too.
Okay. Motion's approved. I need a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
Madam President,
Yes.
I so move.
Okay. Secretary Lair, second. Second, Vice President Egge. Any discussion on the treasurer's report? Okay, I'll call for a vote. All who approve signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Then all those that oppose say nay. Motion passes. Acceptance of the management report. I need a motion.
Madam President, I
Yeah.
so move.
Secretary Lair, second.
Second.
Director Akins, any discussion on the management report?
Madam President,
Secretary Lair.
I just had a few questions and a couple comments. On the management report under finance, human resource report, I've been watching this since January, and you've got your key performance indicator or metric that you're using. It's really amazing how much this has changed. I mean, 2019, you had 31 days, 2020, 12.91 days. Last month, it was 6-something, and now this month, it's 7. Do you have a goal for that? Is there something you're shooting for? And then how come this is such a huge improvement? What happened?
First of all, Secretary Lair, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Yes, we do have a goal, and it is 10 days.
10 days.
So what the big driver behind that is that we did hire a couple new people within the HR department about a year ago, a little over a year ago. And one of the drivers or one of the improvements that we wanted to make was the turnaround on getting people hired. You know, we were getting feedback that, you know, we want to get people in here and, you know, some of our services are degrading and such because we can't get people in. So we hired somebody who actually has a very good background in utilizing all of the hiring websites and such like LinkedIn. So we actually started utilizing a couple new ones as well. And so we really put a focus on that, and that's what's driving it.
Well, that's wonderful.
Thank you.
I have another question, comment. Okay. Under the Grand Center, there's a delay with a timing delay, and it has something to do with APS. And, that was on the last one, too, and I'm just curious what's going on with the APS and the Grand Avenue project.
Secretary Lair, happy to answer those questions. The transformer pad at Grand 2 is adjacent to the transformer pad for the adjacent building, the AM/PM and auto shop. And there's a significant difference in elevation in the heights of the transformer pads. Ours at Grand 2 is about a foot higher than the one next to it. So there's a drainage issue. And months and months ago, we addressed the drainage issue and submitted it to Maricopa County. And it took about 10 weeks for them to finally approve the design solution, which includes putting a water retention chamber underground, and that would capture the drainage water by these transformers. So that, in essence, is the delay, is the waiting for approval from Maricopa County on the design improvement, because we couldn't bury the water retention chamber until they said the design was good. So we had an open trench for 2 months, preventing much other work around that area. Where this is at the back where the canopy for the auto club's going to be. So this has just prevented a series of delays, and we're making do the best we can. We're trying to make up time. We don't know the impact yet of this delay. We're assessing it. But one of the other key things is now that we've got this approved, APS will now finally put in the transformer. They landed it this week on the 23rd. So next week, they're going to come and actually hook it up and provide power to the building. Power to the building will allow us to do commissioning work, turn on the lights, the AC, hook up the computer components, all the electrical. So
Big project.
So that one design issue really impacted a whole series of events.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Any more discussion? Okay, I will call for a vote. All those who approve signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone who opposes, say nay. Okay, motion passes. Going on to committee recommendations. First one's coming from me. The bowling committee recommending that guest league bowlers are allowed to bowl at RCSC bowling centers during open play.
I so move.
I need a second. Motion by Secretary, by Director Akins, seconded by Steve Collins. I need a roll call vote. A discussion on any of this first? Yes, Secretary Lair.
Okay, I guess my question is, bowling is closed, it's indoors, and we're saying we're going to have guests come in, is that
It is,
in accordance with everything else we're doing?
right now, we have people who are on the leagues. The leagues are limited, as well as the space involved, how many can be on lanes and so forth.
Oh, okay.
And in order for the leagues to go, they have some members that are outside of Sun City that right now can only can only bowl at their league time. And so this is actually asking that anyone who is active in those leagues be able to have a practice round.
I see.
Madam President,
Yes, Director Hofer.
did Director of Bowling Randy Johnson have an issue on this?
His question was how he would handle it at the desk.
And what was?
As far as check-in. They thought it might be difficult, but that was where it was left.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'll take a vote. Treasurer Rooney.
No.
Vice President Eggy.
Yes.
Secretary Lair.
Yes.
Director Akins.
Yes.
Director Schroeder.
Yes.
Director Hofer.
Yes.
Director McAdam.
Yes.
Director Collins.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion passes, first reading on that. Director Akins.
Yes, Madam President, the Lawn Bowling Committee is requesting the Sun City Lawn Bowl Clubs be approved to host the prestigious U.S. National Championships of Lawn Bowling event in late October 2022, which will require 2 greens, either Bell or Lakeview, and for 6 days, 2 days of practice and 4 days of competition.
I need a motion.
Move to approve.
Okay, motion by Director Schroeder, second.
Second.
Second by Director Hofer. Any discussion on this? Okay, I'll call for a roll call vote. Vice President Eggy.
Yes.
Secretary Lair.
Yes.
Director Akins.
Yes.
Director Schroeder.
Yes.
Director Hofer.
Yes.
Director McAdam.
Yes.
Director Collins.
Yes.
Treasurer Rooney.
Yes.
And I vote yes. That passes first reading. Marcia, has anyone signed up to speak regarding any motions on the agenda today?
No, Madam President.
Okay. And since we don't have any motions, we'll skip right over to agenda items. Has anyone signed up to speak on agenda items?
Jerry Olson on agenda item number 3.
Okay. When you approach the microphone, we ask that you state your name, member number, and the agenda item you wish to speak on. Each speaker will have 3 minutes for comments as indicated by the light on the stage.
Okay, but take my mask off?
No, you really need to have your mask
Okay,
on.
all right. Madam President Wilson, I live on Mission Lane. My
Your
wife.
name and number, please.
Oh, my name is Jerry Olson, and my number is 116585.
Okay.
My wife and I are snowbirds from Minot, North Dakota. We've been coming down to Sun City here for about 5 months for the last 13 years. And I would like to thank you for serving on this board, and I'd like to commend you and everybody that does a terrific job in maintaining and improving these rec centers. They are truly a great thing for all of us that live here, and we tend to take them for granted. And yeah, I guess the issue that I came here to speak about is my oldest son from Minneapolis, daughter-in-law, and my 2 grandsons have been coming down for about the last 6 or 7 years. And I just can't tell you how much they enjoy using the pool in the hours that are designated for guests to be able to do that. And then we also use the miniature golf at the same time that we go to the pool. And I was just hoping that you would consider opening the rec centers for guests, following suit with Sun City West. The numbers seem to be improving a lot in Arizona, and with the precautions of the masks and distancing and things like that, I was hoping that that might be a consideration that we would take a look at. And I guess that's all I had to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam President, no one else has signed up to speak on agenda items.
Okay, so we'll go to our first agenda item. Director Hofer.
Thank you, Madam President. At the request of the Director of Golf and Grounds, I move to amend Board Policy Number 17 titled Golf, Section General Golf Rules and Regulations, the following sentence within paragraph 4, and I am changing the date that is listed on the written agenda. There should be no more than 5 carts for any group and a maximum of 5 players on regulation courses, and no more than 4 carts for any group and a maximum of 4 players on executive courses for a trial period ending October 31st, 2021.
I need a second.
Second.
Treasurer Rooney.
Madam President,
It says August.
Yes.
the reason for this change is the initial period was going to be August 31st. Since it requires 3 votes and the board does not meet in July and August, we would actually have a period of time, probably from the 1st of September through the middle of October, when if indeed 5 carts were going to become a permanent situation on our golf courses, that we would have about a month and a half lag time there. And so by moving this into October, the end of October, we are eliminating that problem. And I have discussed this with Director of Golf and Grounds, Brian Duthu.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. We'll go for a vote. Secretary Lair.
Yes.
Director Akins.
Yes.
Director Schroeder.
Yes.
Director Hofer.
Yes?
Director McAdam.
Yes.
Director Collins.
Yes.
Treasurer Rooney.
Yes.
Vice President Eggy.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Agenda item passes first reading. Next one, Director of Finance, Bill Cook.
Thank you, Madam President. Board members and directors, thank you for your time. What I want to do is present kind of our next steps and progress that we've made on the Safety and Security Initiative that was presented by the Long Range Planning Committee back in October. So just to give you a little history for our new board members, back in October 12th, 2020, the Long Range Planning Committee presented a Safety and Security Initiative recommendation. And the summary of that is that this would be a recreation-wide initiative, so covering entries, parking, golf courses, sun bowl, golf maintenance. It would cover access control, intrusion prevention, video, interior and exterior, panic towers, and then a cloud-based storage mechanism. So our takeaway, management's takeaway from that, based on feedback from the board members, was to create a business case for this SSI initiative by the Long Range Planning Committee. Okay? So what does that mean? Okay, so building the business case basically is going to be a 5-step process, all right? Step 1 is to design the required infrastructure that meets the recommendation by the Long Range Planning Committee. Step 2 is develop and implement, or an implementation request for proposal, so an RFP. So we want to develop an RFP to install, integrate, procure the equipment with the design that was created in step 1. Step 3 then would be to conduct the RFP process. So we would then send that RFP that was created in step 2 out to various vendors to respond. And then step 4 is to develop a budget and analyze the cost of implementation versus a cost of no action. So, and then from there, make a go or no-go decision. So we would take a look at the responses of the RFP, and then we would take a look at, well, what if we did nothing, right? And so what are the costs of repairs for damages? What are the costs of stolen vehicles? What are the costs associated with any graffiti or those types of things? So we would take a look at all of that and compare the two and make a decision on whether or not this is something we want to do. And then if we make a go decision, then we would select a vendor from the RFP process, and then we would go ahead and implement. So what progress have we made on those 5 steps? So currently, we're underway with steps 1 and 2. So we've initiated contact with 3 vendors to develop and design the system, and that's across all of the rec centers and all of the long-range planning initiative areas that are covered. And so we've come back and had them come back and quote us what it would cost for them to design the system and then to develop the RFP, okay? Because quite honestly, senior management, we don't really have the expertise to say we could design this entire system. We have some components in our IT organization, but we can't design an entire system based on the based on the LRP recommendation. So we have the 3 vendors in place, all right, and we have received the quotes, and I believe you've had a chance to look at the quotes. So the requirements that we established with each of the vendors is that obviously we want to incorporate everything that was associated with the long-range planning recommendation, okay, and their specs. We wanted to make sure that it was interoperable with any of the security systems that we have in place, especially when you look at Grand. We just spent some money with brand new security systems, so we wanted to make sure that it integrated with anything we have in place to the greatest extent that it could. And then we wanted to ensure the components are vendor agnostic, okay, so non-proprietary. So in other words, plug and play. We didn't want to be stuck with one particular vendor, and I've had history where we do that, and then you're stuck trying to find individuals that are that are able to actually work on that equipment, and then it ends up being a higher cost as well. Okay. So the 3 vendors that we chose were based off of current interaction that we've had with those vendors. So any vendor that we've either done business with or we've had interaction, so if the board has had interaction with them, we wanted to utilize those that were familiar with RCSC. So we used CTS cabling, Fire Security, Electronics and Communications, or FSEC, and then Security 101. So we did receive 2 quotes. We did have a no bid from CTS, and their no bid was based on, they wanted to make sure that they could, comply with our timeline. And so they didn't feel like they could, so they didn't want to, go ahead and put in a quote and then not be able to deliver. So they had a no bid on that. FSEC came back with an initial bid of $39,608, and Security 101 was $18,400. I have since gone back and asked for best and final pricing from them, and we did get FSEC to come down to $35,800, and then Security 101 came down to $16,200, I believe. So I know that there seems to be a disparity in pricing, and I know there's no recommendation on here, because at the time that I had created this last week, I still had not had a second interview, we'll say, with all of the vendors, and I did not receive back their best and final pricing. So I wanted to make sure I had enough information to make a recommendation. So the disparity in pricing, I think, is driven by a couple things. So in meeting with Security 101, I discovered that there was an organizational shakeup, and so actually the two new principals, so their new president and vice president of operations, just moved to Phoenix from Florida. So they assumed control of the organization, so they don't have familiarity with Arizona, I believe, like the original owner and principals. And in the discussions, I discovered that they only have 4 employees. Okay, so I believe that they're very small and they're trying to really, break into the market space by lowering their price. 35.8, I did some research and talked to some vendors regarding that pricing, and it's roughly 200 to 300 hours of work is the way I calculated it, at anywhere from $119 to $174, depending on how many hours it actually is. I don't know what that is, but that's kind of an estimate. And I asked another vendor who who is not participating in this, and just said, does it make sense that this is a $200 to $300 project, and does that price per hour make sense? And the answer was absolutely. That if we were to bid on it, that's where we would be, and it's very reasonable. And I asked them about their knowledge of FSEC, and they said that they're very reputable, they're a very large organization. They are only Arizona-based as well, which is kind of nice. And so it seems like the $35,000 is reasonable, and therefore my recommendation would be, if the board decides to move forward to steps 3, 4, and 5 of the business case, is to use FSEC. Another reason is that they are a preferred vendor. So they did our deployment of our security at Grand 1 and 2. And in talking with Director of Operations Chris Herring, we have a very good relationship with them, and we've been very happy. So I would recommend that we would utilize FSEC. So, of course, moving forward would require board approval. This is, just to note that this is an unbudgeted item for this year, so just wanted to let you know that and make sure we're aware of that. Any questions?
Madam President?
Yes, Director Hofer.
Thank you. Mr. Cook, one of the problems that I had with the original proposal from Long Range Planning Committee was it was all reactive rather than proactive. We've had several issues of break-ins at softball field and as well as Quail Run. Is there anything that you're doing that FSEC is going to be able to do to make this more proactive as opposed to totally reactive?
So I think a part of that answer is in step 4, where we would, in the business case, where we would actually take a look at, does it make sense to spend the money to deploy, any of the systems that are in the RFP, and then to actually take a look at not doing anything. So I think part of that analysis would ferret out whether or not this is something that we should be spending money on. To answer your question on doing anything proactive, in terms of having maybe perhaps another vendor come in and just take a look at RCSC, in general, from a security perspective, and say, hey, these are the issues we're experiencing. What do you think makes the best sense in terms of what should be deployed? We have not taken that path, but that's something that we were told to not take that path and kind of go in this direction, which is actually to take the long-range planning initiative and go forward with that.
Do you mind if I ask who told you not to take that path?
So it was a board decision where we...
No.
Yes.
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 Yeah, it was.
Yes.
Yes, it was.
The board did not accept 100% the long-range planning committee. The board asked management to come up with their own views based on that, but not to accept entirely.
Well, that I'm not aware of. The direction that I have is that we were to take this and go with the direction that I presented today.
That was my understanding as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Madam President?
Yes.
Mr. Cook, how long has FSEC been in business? Is it a couple of years?
They've been in business for 40 years.
Oh, great. Okay. Thank you.
Madam President, may I
Yes,
ask?
Treasurer Bruni?
Bill, could you explain maybe 3 features of what you're trying to do to protect this community by your security venture? I thought the long-range planning initiative was very good, and I liked it. And I'd like to see what you're talking with.
So, again, I'm not an expert in this area, so I don't know that I'm comfortable in really answering any details with respect to what any system would do in terms of protection. So at this point, I would like to leave that up to the experts.
Okay.
Madam President,
Yes.
as, like you're saying, as far as protection, the only thing that's going to protect is more law enforcement, and that's something that is out of our control. A lot of times at night in Sun City, there's only 1 or 2 sheriffs on duty, so that's very hard to come up with something. You might get a picture of them, of the perpetrator, but you're not going to be able to do much more than that unless law enforcement increases their patrolling. So I agree with you.
Okay,
Any other
Director,
questions?
Bill?
Secretary Laird? Oh, I'm sorry.
I have one question. Would this be budgeted then for next year, for 2022?
We could put it in next year's budget.
Okay.
Based on, obviously, that would have to be
Yes,
based on
yes.
board approval.
Yes.
Madam
Secretary
President,
Lear.
I would like to move to accept your proposal and to move forward
Okay, second?
with, can we have, is it, now I'm talking in the middle of my motion, but is it possible to go ahead and move forward with it now, even though it's not a budgeted item?
It is, but it would have to be approved by the board.
Well,
Which proposal?
So is that your proposal, that we do it this year, or budget it for next year?
I would say if we can do it this year, I would prefer that. And I would go with your recommendation, which would be the FSEC.
Okay, I need a second.
Second.
Second by Vice President Eggy. Any other discussion?
I have a question.
Director McAdam?
Is FSEC capable of providing all of the desired services themselves?
Yes. So we have not precluded any of the 3 vendors from bidding on the next phase, which is the implementation phase. So yes, they're very capable. They've already done that at Grand.
Any other discussion? Okay,
Just
Secretary Lear?
just a comment, and I know that this is not a budgeted item, but security has been an issue. Members have come forward to meetings for every year I've been on the board. It's been an issue. I think that we need to be proactive in taking a look at this because things in this country are not going the way they were 30 years ago. So the cost to not do something, I think you have to look beyond property. You know, that there could be a potential at some point that there could be something else. And I think you need to be, you'd be putting your head in the sand and pretending that nothing bad could ever happen here in Sun City, and I think that's foolish. So the sooner we get this on target, because this could be something that's phased in over many, many years. We don't know what the cost will be and what pieces we're going to take. But just this first step, I think, is extremely important.
Madam President,
Yes, Director Aiken.
I would also like to remind people that, like the Secretary Larry just stated, our community has changed, our society has changed. And I know a lot of people move out here in Sun City and get very complacent, and they think they're in a comfortable, secure environment. But we're still an open community. And everybody and then their brother can come out here and drive through our community. So I encourage people, just because we're getting the security system set up, to please continue to lock up everything. Lock your doors, lock your car doors, secure your golf carts. Don't just think because the security system is up that all of a sudden now you can go back to just leaving everything open and feeling comfortable with that.
Okay, any other discussion?
I
Director
do have
McAdam?
a further question for you, Mr. Cook, and
Yeah.
that would be, we're talking right now about approving a budget to do an investigation, basically, to come back and to tell us this is what we think it would be. This is just the cost of, it's a proposal for future work. Can you give us any idea at all, like to one order of magnitude, what the eventual cost of actually implementing what might come out of this would be?
I do not. I could not even venture a guess in terms of each of the components.
Okay, could you, is it quite conceivable that that implementing this would cost over $1 million?
I cannot answer that. I can't answer that. But once we go through step 3 and we get the RFPs back, which I think we could probably do within 90 days or perhaps sooner, we'll know that number.
Madam President?
Treasurer Bruni?
I think that security is of utmost importance. We have to protect our residents and our buildings and our centers. Doing something forward, really almost no matter the cost, is going to save us money as well on our insurance costs. Our insurance is almost $1 million a year for everything that we pay here. It's not cheap. And the more we can do and invest in managing and maintaining our property in a really acceptable manner, even at the cost, what could be, we have to do that. There isn't any downside to it. We have to protect our people and our property. And another thing that we might be able to do is with the security company, another avenue that can come from whoever we select, and it looks like you have a good recommendation, perhaps they can also help our community with individual security and things like that. So it's an avenue that can grow and be helpful for everybody. Thank you for all your work on that.
You're welcome.
Madam President.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Director Collins?
Thank you, Madam President. You said that you've already done work at Grand, so is all this covered at Grand already? At the new Grand project?
So one of the prerequisites is that any system that is designed would integrate with any current systems that we have. So the assumption would be, and it actually is in the statement of work, that says it would, they would integrate to the greatest extent that they can with our current systems.
Correct.
That's the plan.
Okay.
Director Akins?
Yeah, Madam President, Board of Directors, we know board members that keep saying that we have to protect our residents and keep them secure. I just want to make sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we need to make sure we have that disclaimer out here that we are not going to be responsible for lost and stolen items. We're just trying to put up security systems to try to deter things like that from happening, but we cannot be responsible if you don't take the responsibility of locking up your stuff. Is that okay to say? I mean, I want to make sure everybody understands that. We're not taking on your responsibility. We're trying to make sure that we're helping you be more responsible, I guess.
Okay. Any other discussion? Director McAdam?
So I think that I'm actually quite in favor of this, and I'm very with encouraging us to proceed. At the same time, I also think that we need to be careful about understanding that we're talking right now about somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000 just to figure out if we're going to do this. And my concern is simply to say that there are no downsides to protecting people, I'm not sure is completely accurate, because at some point that security costs us a lot of money, and that money, as we know, doesn't grow on trees. It comes from annual property assessments. So I guess my question would be, has there been any consideration of how a project of this scope, which likely will cost a couple of $1 million, I'm guessing, how that would be funded? There may be some savings that come through insurance, but it's certainly not going to be enough to be able to put this into our budget. And it may be the kind of thing that's not just a one-time budget, but it's an annual cost that we're looking at. And so my question is simply, has there been any thought given to how much we're willing to raise the annual property assessments by in order to fund a project like this?
No discussion has been made. All I can tell you is that it will come out of operations since it is not eligible for PIF. That's all I can tell you for now.
Yes.
It's my understanding, if it's a brand-new project, then it can be covered under PIF?
No.
It cannot because...
Not even in a brand-new building?
No, because of the depreciable life of the asset does not meet the PIF requirements within our... Pardon me? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes. So your question is if it was part of a larger project, then the answer is yes.
So at Grand, we've put in everything we're going to need so we can get it all covered there, right?
That's correct.
And that'll cover all the grounds, everything?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any more
Madam President,
discussion? Yes.
point of information, could we have the secretary read the motion again, please?
Okay.
I move to approve the recommendation to proceed with the request for proposal from FSEC, even though it's not in the operating budget, or not budgeted, not budgeted.
Thank you.
Okay. And we had a second by Mike Aggie. So no further discussion. We'll go ahead and take a roll call vote. Director Akins?
Yes.
Director Schroeder?
Yes.
Director Hofer?
Yes.
Director McAdam?
Yes.
Director Collins?
Yes.
Treasurer Rooney?
Yes.
Vice President Eggy?
Yes.
Secretary Lair?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Passes first reading. Thank you. Director of Operations Chris Herring on our next agenda item.
Madam President, Board of Directors, the RCSC management recommends changing the current guest policy that does not allow guests to use RCSC facilities. RCSC management recommends allowing escorted guests to some outdoor activities beginning May 1st, 2021. Guests would be permitted in the following outdoor activities: bocce, fishing, horseshoes, mini golf, pickleball, softball, tennis, and walking in the outdoor areas. Guests must always be escorted by an RCSC cardholder and may not use the RCSC facilities without the RCSC cardholder being present. RCS cardholders must use the online guest pass function on the RCSC web portal to register their guests and to pay the daily guest fee. The online guest pass must be verified at the time of entry with the guests, and verification of the guest's identification and residency may be required. An online guest pass would not be required for guests in activities that do not require a daily guest fee, such as walking in the Lakeview Hillside Park. Host punch cards would not be accepted or sold at facility attendant check-in stations, and guest passes would also not be provided at these locations. Guests would continue to not be allowed in some outdoor activities due to physical distancing requirement that limits capacity, including pools, walking pools, spas, and their surrounding pool deck areas. Finally, guests would not be allowed in any indoor activities, including fitness, pools, walking pools, and spas.
Okay.
Any questions regarding that?
Vice President Eggy.
Is there any way we can do this sooner than May 1st?
No.
We were presenting as May 1st to be within the guidelines of making a motion and having 3 readings on this. So it is to the board's pleasure whether they would indicate a sooner implementation of it. There are some things we have to do with the RCSC web portal in order to make it available. So this is not something that we could just flip the switch tomorrow, but could be done sooner than May 1st if required.
Okay, thank you.
Secretary Lair.
I was just wondering if it's possible at all to have an outdoor pool open for guests and have, like a limited time allotted for that, like we did in the past for children or whatever. We could pick one pool and have hours for guests. It's an outdoor activity.
We have certainly had cardholders propose that similar solution. The concern that we have is the physical distancing. So we have limited the space on the pool deck with furniture, and then having distancing within the pools themselves limits our ability to have increased use of those areas. Anecdotally, we have contention today at pools on a sunny afternoon where we don't have enough pool chairs or loungers on the deck, and have negative interactions with cardholders that are dissatisfied with that, even though, it's just the requirement so that we have the distancing on the deck between the chairs. So as it is today at most or all of our facilities, we have contention, and adding guests to that proposition would create more of a problem. It also, if we begin to do that, we have guests that are displacing the cardholders in those locations. So that would be the concern.
Secretary.
Just a further follow-up on things. On the 10th of March this year, this RCSC updates for COVID rules and regulations was sent out. This kind of is contradictory in some respects, and I'm not quite sure why that is. But I did have some questions about some of the things that were on that document that says, like softball, you have softball and outdoor track, no guests allowed. Well, now it sounds like maybe walking is allowable, but what about softball? Are we going to allow guests to come to softball?
Now, when those rules were redone, one of the things we did was to clean up those rules. We were very intentional when the rules were first created, and we were repetitive in some common rules throughout that document. And what we had done is remove those duplications that were down within each activity section and remove it up to a more pervasive top of the rule set. But we left those rules that were specific to each one of those activities in place, and including no guests. That part of that was also intentional, so that when and if the guests change, they could be removed by activities individually rather than have it be all up at the top of that document. So the no guest has been consistent in softball, if that's what your question is.
Yeah, I didn't understand why we were doing some things and not other things. The other thing, I guess, that I found was missing on this was the water volleyball, which is a club, and they're not open, but we're, so it's like, I'm just trying, help me to understand.
Yeah, well, the water volleyball is an activity. If a club wasn't open and operating, we didn't include those. And we had included on that document some very detailed rules within the softball club. And upon further review, when we did this update to the rules, part of the reason of removing those is those were club rules with respect to how they were going to handle opening up that activity. And really, it's not something that's ever reaching to each card holder for that activity. So we didn't feel the need to continue to post with those sanitation and protocols that they were doing for safety to open up softball on that document. So that's why those were removed.
Okay.
Director Schroeder.
Chris, I did not see lawn bowling on here at all. I just was wondering.
Again, lawn bowling is a club activity, and that club has submitted its safety protocols for operating. And so I agree there's an inconsistency there by having softball on that document. But we did not go to put each club on there, and that's why you don't have lawn bowling on there.
Thank you.
Yes, Director Collins.
It did not take the rec center three meetings to close things. I don't understand why it takes 3 to open them.
Director Collins, I would like to address that. The 3, when we talk about 3 readings, that was a motion, or that was something that we proposed as a board during board meetings. Can something be waived? Yes, and Director Herring has said that we could waive it so that it could be earlier if we choose to do that.
And Director Collins, if I may, one of the other reasons why we had the 3 readings is we understand we get feedback from cardholders. While there is quite a bit of negative feedback regarding the guest policy, there's also positive feedback that we get from cardholders that appreciate those efforts that we've made in creating our policy. And so having the opportunity for those voices to be able to make their comments available, both for and against, having the additional readings for that, because the understanding that it's all positive or all for opening up for guests is not necessarily the case.
Well, it causes me great pain that the loved ones of our cardholders are not going to be allowed this year. They weren't allowed last year. The average age is in the 70s here, and they're going to deny them a second year, which a lot of them don't have too many years. And we had a record banner year of golf with 78,578 rounds of golf played, and that was guests and visitors. They rode in golf carts. We had no significant rising of COVID from this activity. They were in the clubhouses, the snack shops, restrooms, and we made exceptions for golf, and we made exceptions for bowling. And we came up with a viable plan and executed them. But we can't come up with a plan for our families to go to the pool. It's just crazy. Therefore, I propose we use Mountain View facility for swimming and putt-putt. There are no clubs in there. We could do it from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. during this pandemic with a cardholder's escort.
Okay, we haven't made a motion yet to recommend this.
But,
Madam President?
and also,
Hang on.
We're in a pandemic.
also, I mean,
Stop it.
they should be able to have things open. People should be able to play cards if they've been vaccinated 2 weeks ago. I mean, CDC says if you've had your vaccination, after 2 weeks, you can meet with vaccinated people. And I would just like to know how many people in here have had a vaccine. Raise your hand if you
Steve,
want.
I'm sorry.
No.
You're out of order.
Yes.
Madam President, may I
Yes.
address that? There's been talk about whether RCSC looks and checks for vaccination records, and there's many sides to that, and even as we sit out here, we may see that different ways, that we're permitted to do that or we're not permitted to do that. What I think is important is that the RCSC bylaws and Board Policy 12 indicate what a cardholder in good standing is and what a cardholder in good standing can do. I believe it's in our purview to be able to indicate how a cardholder can use an activity, that being with a mask, with physically distance. What I feel challenged and difficult is if we then put rules on if you are able to use an activity that is over and above what the governing documents indicate a cardholder can do. So should we say if you have a vaccination record, then you would be able to do an activity? That is an addition to an if clause within our governing documents that I think is a challenge for us to do.
Mm-hmm.
That though could be left up to the clubs to do and submitted to you for reopening, that their guests are vaccinated, correct?
No.
No, again, I think that's an if clause, that if you meet a certain criteria that is not in the governing documents, then you are permitted to use an activity. I think that's a slippery slope.
Mm-hmm.
Madam President?
Secretary Lair.
I would like to make a motion. I move to accept the recommended changes to the guest policy with the removal of the May 1st, 2021 date.
Second.
So what date are you putting on?
No date.
Okay, no date. Okay, and seconded by Director Schroeder. Any more discussion?
Yes.
Treasurer, I'm sorry.
Our members can, two people can ride in a golf cart. I just still don't understand how that is different than a paddle boat or a rowboat.
Madam President?
Yes, Director Hofer.
Thank you. Two people are not allowed to ride in a golf cart currently. That's why we have the 5 golf cart rule. Only one person is allowed to ride in a golf cart at this point in time. Thank you.
Yes, unless they are family members.
Right there, unless they're family
And live in
members.
the same house.
Well, you think strangers go out in a paddle boat?
Oh, God. Come on. Enough already. Enough.
Yes, Bill Cook.
Yeah, well, who started it?
Madam
Yes.
President, Board of Directors,
Yes.
if I could just put my risk management hat on just for 1 second.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going through our property and casualty insurance renewal as of July 1st, and there's been a big change this year in terms of us disclosing what we did during the pandemic and what we plan on doing as we reopen. And so it was probably a 2-day process to fill out these forms, very detailed in terms of what we've done, and I was very proud of what we had done in terms of taking the approach that we did, which is being objective and following ADHS and CDC. And in talking with our broker, they, mirrored that and said, hopefully this goes a long way in our renewal process to show that you guys are very, really taking a look at this and put a good plan in place. So I just wanted to let you know that as well.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Director Akins.
We have been doing this pandemic thing for about 1.5 years, and I know everybody's losing patience. I am also. But I don't think waiting another 4 weeks is going to kill anybody. I don't think it's going to destroy anything. And I think we still are trying to do a soft opening. It's like we're trying now to do a soft opening for you guys, and you're still not satisfied. I'm not sure what we can do instead of just open up everything and let everybody do whatever they want to do. You can't open up the pools, because I've been there at those pools, and I've been there on days when the days are warm and it is extremely crowded. You cannot monitor that, because there are a ton of people there, and I've seen the people get very upset because they can't move the chairs, they can't sit here where they want, they can't do this what they want, and they think it's just a bunch of mess. I've seen that. I go to the pools all the time. We are doing a nice soft opening. I am very pleased with the plan you've come up with.
Madam President,
Yes, Director Hofer.
I would be in favor of this recommendation as long as it does have the May 1st in it. If we're taking the May 1st out of it, I will be against it, because first of all, as Mr. Herring said, they're not going to be able to pull the trigger on that and do it. What my suggestion would be to keep it at May 1st, and after the April 12th meeting, which is our next board meeting, we can waive the third reading and do it immediately at that point in time. That gives them time to get their ducks in a row and get it in place. To do it and just wipe it off is not very prudent, in my opinion. And if that were in there as May 1st for one more reading, I would be in favor of it. We could actually waive the third reading and make it possible at that point in time.
Okay, right now, are you making an amendment then to?
No, I'm saying the amendment's been made, or the motion has been made. If the motion, as stated, says beginning May 1st, I will support it. If that is taken out, I will not support it.
Madam President,
Yes, Secretary Lear.
I would like to ask Chris a question. If we took this off, how long would it take you to get things ready? It can't happen overnight, but what kind of timeline would you? Let's say this passes, this motion passes, and we forgo the second and third readings. How long is it going to take you to make this happen?
I would say April 5th.
April 5th. Okay.
We could target that. We have not started doing any of the changes to the web portal, because we don't want to make changes and then have to back them out if something wasn't going to happen. So we still have to make those changes available.
Okay.
Can I, Madam President, could I
Director
just ask,
McAdams?
related to that specifically, so you're talking about, the process for doing online guest registration already exists and has existed for over a year already. So what precisely is it that needs to be changed?
We have to update the page, Director McAdams' board, we have to update the pages so that we can present the information to the cardholder at the time of the purchase of that guest pass. That gives them the qualifications for that use for that guest. So we have to present them with additional terms and conditions, do some linking to what's available and what's open, because at the time of the purchase, the cardholder needs to be aware of what the conditions are and the restrictions for those guests so that their expectation is set when they come into the facilities. If we don't do that, then they won't know, they may feel that guests can go anywhere. We need to make sure that that expectation is set properly, and there's some coding to do that.
Well,
Madam President?
I would like to follow up on that question, please. So 2 questions I would have about that. One is that Sun City West announced on March 8th that they were reopening completely with guests as of March 15th. So for some reason or another, they were able to accomplish that in a week's time. And secondly, the things that you're discussing that you would have to add to the webpage are not things that have to be discussed. They just have to be entered into it as raw data. You've already got the plan right here. You said this is, so I'm afraid that I just don't understand it. But I also do have, I've actually prepared something that was going to take a couple of minutes for me to get through. But I would like to make a plea that we strive to reopen as close to this coming Monday as is possible. And this is my rationale for that. So this little speech, you might want to think of it as the 3C speech. So I've tried to use 3 words that start with the C. The first one is the word consistency. We as human beings are all wired to look for patterns and are struck by inconsistencies. And I think that we've seen this in a number of ways. You know, golf carts, paddle boats, rowboats, how do we explain why we allow one and we don't allow the other? Why do we allow league play for some and not for others? It's yes for bowling, it's no for tennis, no for softball, no for pickleball. And this has been going on for quite some time, and I think a lot of people are pretty tired of the inconsistencies that they see. And then the same thing in terms of guests or non-residents. Yes, golf and bowling are allowed to have non-residents enter in them, no for everybody else. I can golf with aliens and strangers, but I cannot play mini golf with my brothers and sisters.
Aliens. We don't have aliens.
So the second word is the word caution, and I think that Mr. Cook just spoke to this. Caution goes along with risk, and one of the key jobs that we have is to always balance risk, not to eliminate it. And as I look around the state of Arizona, I think we hardly find a place that is exercising more caution and more risk averseness than we are here, and that comes with a cost. So our membership has tolerated plenty of restrictions, but for long enough now. We were told at the beginning of the pandemic that we would have to take certain disagreeable precautions in order to preserve medical capacity for the seriously ill. Hospital capacity is no longer any concern whatsoever. Secondly, what will have changed between March 29th and May 1st that makes it okay for a grandfather to take his grandson fishing then, but not now? Then that grandson is going to be back in school in Des Moines or in Spokane. Now he's here. Third, vaccinations. Any Sun City resident who wishes to be vaccinated has been able to do so. Among vaccinated individuals, there are 0 cases of hospitalizations and 0 deaths due to COVID. This week, the Navajo Nation, the Arizona demographic most seriously impacted by COVID, registered at the beginning of the week 2 consecutive days with 0 new cases. These vaccines we have are truly miracle drugs. And we don't have to check people for vaccination in order to allow them onto our properties or to come with guests. Nobody is being handcuffed and dragged to a rec center against their will. official CDC guidelines, as mentioned by Director Collins, allow, so these are written CDC guidelines, allow for indoor visits with unvaccinated people with no masks and no social distancing. So if even indoor visits in close quarters have been deemed safe, why are we acting like outdoor contact is so very threatening?
That's what they said. That's not what they said.
Sun City West reopened completely on March 15th
already
with
said
guests
that.
allowed.
I know about
What?
it. This is getting ridiculous.
Point of order?
You already said that.
Finish your statement.
I'm working on it. So what is the public relations effect of that? You know, Sun City goes by the moniker, the Fun City. If you want to have fun with your family and friends, seems like you ought to choose Sun City West. So tomorrow, our grandson is flying from Chicago to Phoenix together with his mom. He's 8 years old. Caleb is a special needs child. Caleb is nonverbal. But you would not be able to imagine the hours and hours and hours of fun that we have had with him in Sun City pools, where he laughs and is just transported into a world of joy. And I think that I'm not alone in this, in understanding that by not allowing certain things to take place, I think we are disregarding the deep, deep cost that is associated with that. And finally, the last C word that I have is simply a word that I have a hard time not associating with the policies of the leadership of our organization, and that's just the word callousness. For all of our residents who are anticipating family visits, this is one of the brightest spots in what has otherwise been a really hard year of isolation and distance, with many attendant consequences for mental and emotional health. For some number of our senior residents, this Easter is the last one that they will experience on Earth. The last time they will be able to share their earthly home of choice with their grandchildren, great-grandchildren, extended families, and non-resident friends. The May 1st date seems like a deliberate attempt to forbid this level of contact when it could naturally occur. And furthermore, communication has offered very little evidence that those making these decisions even care. The March 16th revised RCSC guidelines emailed to the membership and referenced earlier by Director Lehrer were most notable for the prevalence of 3 words: no guests allowed. A 2 to maybe 3-page document, those 3 words appeared 23 times by actual count. Conspicuously lacking was any acknowledgement of the gracious willingness of our membership to do their part, hard as it was to stop the spread, and any indication of remorse that things needed to be this way or hope that they might soon be different. And finally, there's no place that I can go in Sun City to escape.
She said it's 3 times, finally.
Point of order.
There's no place I can go in Sun City to escape the deluge of questions about when RCSC is opening for guests. Nor am I the only one to have been inundated with pleas for reconsideration. And as I look out on the floor today, I might be wrong about this, but I think that a lot of us feel the same way. So how about just a little less callousness to the deep and justified desires of our membership? So every one of us who votes in support of delaying reopening until May is condoning another 5.5 weeks of inconsistency, is exercising a slavish devotion to caution at the expense of all other values, and is displaying a dismaying sense of callousness to our fellow residents. They deserve better, and I hope we will reconsider. Thank you.
So,
Madam President?
hold on one moment. sorry, folks. It's real hard to hear when you're clapping, so please hold off on your clapping. Let us settle our business. Director McAdams, are you making an amendment?
I just put it in your mouth.
I'm not making an amendment. I am fully in support of a motion that is designed for immediate implementation.
Then you have to make an amendment. Otherwise, the motion that is on the floor is the one that Secretary Lair made.
Okay, then I will move to amend that to say for immediate implementation.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any other discussion before we move on? Okay, so first we're going to do a roll call vote on,
I have discussion. I have one question left. The softball issue. The softball team is playing now with Sun City West, in Sun City West. So all these people are together, but yet they can't come here and play together after the same people. And I just don't understand that. You're not protecting anyone from anything because they're either there or they're here. And it's an outdoor activity, and we've proven that an outdoor activity has not been a major issue in Sun City.
so Director Collins, are you making an amendment to the amendment?
I make an amendment to the amendment, yes.
Okay, please
That
state.
I make an amendment that we open immediately.
That's what she said.
Also softball, be allowed to go back to playing softball with Sun City West. Let the car shows come back, they're outdoors, outdoor activities, open them.
Okay, is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Oh, come on.
Secretary Lair, seconds. Any other discussion? Are we ready for a roll call vote? Director McAdams.
So I guess I would like to ask Mr. Herring what
Take a vote.
outdoor activities, other than the pools, walking pools, spas, and surrounding pool deck areas that are referenced in the presentation that you provided us with, what other outdoor activities would not be open for guest participation?
Director McAdams, Madam President, what we've addressed are monitored activities. Specifically, softball has been a point of contention, but also it is a facility that is an RCSC facility. So we have included that in that distinction. Lawn bowling, as Director Schroeder has asked about, they're open and they're operating as a club. It would be up to the clubs at that point to request that they have guests. That guests in a club would be a club issue at that point based upon the direction and approval from our offices.
Would it be possible to just make a blanket statement that they're all allowed to have guests and don't need to make separate applications for that?
That is certainly an option.
Okay. Other discussion? Are we ready to vote? Yes.
I want to amend
You gotta be kidding me.
my amendment.
No.
Enough already. You're saying the same thing over and over again.
I want to open all outdoor activities
You said,
other than the pools immediately and open Mountain View Pool to guests from the hours of 10 to 7 at night. That way we're only displacing one pool, and there's no clubs in that pool, there's no activities other than in the morning, the people can still go and swim their laps, they can still do their fitness, and none of the guests would be allowed in the fitness area.
Is there a second on this amendment?
So I would second that, if I understand it correctly. You're suggesting that all outdoor activities be open for guests, with the exception of the 6 pools other than the Mountain View. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes, I second that motion.
Okay, let's take a vote first on that amendment where all outdoor activities are open. except the 6 pools, and you'll have Mountain View open 10 to 7. I'm starting with Director Schroeder.
No.
Director Hofer.
No.
Director McAdam.
Yes.
Director Collins.
Yes.
Treasurer Rooney.
Yes.
Vice President Eggy.
No.
Secretary Lair.
Yes.
Director Akins.
No.
And I vote no. That motion fails. Going to the next amendment, which is Steve's amendment, opening up.
That was my amendment.
No, you had an amendment to the amendment. So this is your second one where you are opening up softball.
Okay.
Okay, Director Hofer.
Yes.
Director McAdam.
Yes.
Director Collins.
Yes.
Treasurer Rooney.
Yes.
Vice President Eggy.
Yes.
Secretary Lair.
Yes.
Director Akins.
Yes.
Director Schroeder.
Yes.
And I vote yes. That motion passes. So now going on to Karen's amendment, where we were looking at, I have to think, opening, starting on Monday. Okay. Director McAdam.
Yes.
Director Collins.
Yes.
Treasurer Rooney.
No.
Vice President Eggy.
No.
Secretary Lair.
No.
Director Akins.
No.
Director Schroeder.
No.
And I vote no. That motion fails. Now, going back to the original motion by Secretary Lair and going on a vote
Could
with
you
that
read-
one.
Could you read that motion, Madam Chair?
Secretary Lair.
I move to accept the recommendation for a change in the policy, guest policy, but without the May 1st date.
Okay.
Madam President?
Yes,
I
Director.
still have a question for Mr. Herring.
Yes.
You had mentioned April 5th as the earliest that you could do this and felt comfortable making the changes that you feel are necessary. Would you be acceptable to moving May 5th, or May 1st to April 5th?
Director Hofer, Madam President, what is required of that is a vendor, ability of a vendor to assist us. And so what I would be is writing a check that vendor has to cash, which I believe we could make happen by that time frame. Yes, sooner than that becomes a challenge because I have to get into their programming queue.
Thank you. Madam President?
Yes.
I'd like to make an amendment. I move that the last sentence of that first paragraph read, RCSC management recommends allowing escorted guests to some outdoor activities beginning April 5th, 2021.
Okay, I need a second.
Second.
Vice President Eggy. Discussion.
Yeah, Madam President,
Director Akins.
I like the fact that you want to try to do it by April 5th. I'm not sure that we can really promise that. It can be, like he said, we may be able to do that, but I'm thinking if we put it in there April 5th and then we're not able to do it, then people are going to be upset with us. I liked April 5th, but I'm afraid putting it in there as a concrete thing is almost a little risky.
Are you making an amendment
No.
to the amendment?
Just make it.
Okay, then we're going for a vote, I think. Okay, starting with Director Collins.
Yes.
Treasurer Rooney.
Yes.
Vice President Eggy.
Yes.
Secretary Lair.
Yes.
Director Akins.
Yes.
Director Schroeder.
Yes.
Director Hofer.
Yes.
Director McAdam.
Yes.
And I vote yes. So April 5th does pass. Now we need to go on your motion. Yes,
Oh, we still have to do that even though this.
we have to work back. So we have to do that motion as well.
What was her motion?
Her motion is to open it up with no date. So do
Madam
we
President,
take
point
that
of
one
order.
out?
I don't believe that's true.
We can withdraw that one now.
Point
Yes.
of order, Madam President. We just changed the no date to April 5th.
Okay, all right. Okay, we're moving on to the next agenda item.
Madam President,
Yes,
can I make a motion to forgo the second and third readings?
You can make that motion. I need a second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion to forego second and third reading? Okay, we will go with the vote. Treasurer Rooney.
Yes.
Vice President Eggy.
Yes.
Secretary Lair.
Who seconded?
I did.
Yes.
Director Akins.
Yes?
Director Schroeder.
Yes.
Director Hofer.
Yes.
Director McAdam.
Yes.
Director Collins.
Yes.
And I vote yes. That motion then passes. Final reading. Okay, next agenda item, General Manager Eck.
Madam President, point of order.
Yes.
I believe we still have to vote on the main motion.
No, it was changed on the date, therefore making that one.
But she withdrew it.
But that was the amendment.
Yes.
We still have to vote on the main motion to accept Mr. Herring's proposal.
Recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, it seems repetitive.
But the main motion isn't going to be one anybody's going to vote for, and it's going to,
So there's really no reason to have that one.
No,
Okay, let's go on to General Manager Eck, please.
we're done.
Madam President, Board of Directors, I have two members asking me to present exception requests for them on behalf of expired golf passes. The RCSC's policy allows for a 50% refund of a golf pass for medical reasons validated in writing by a medical doctor within 90 days of the purchase of an annual golf pass. Otherwise, RCSC policy allows for no other refunds of a golf pass. Number one, Mr. Wade renewed his all-course surcharge golf pass for $800 on February 28, 2020, and played 9 times for a value of $279 in 2020. On March 26, 2020, Wade returned to Canada due to COVID and lack of medical insurance. On October 28, 2020, 8 months after purchase, Wade contacted RCSC asking about any accommodations made for Canadian snowbirds in light of the fact that the U.S.-Canadian border was closed due to the pandemic. Wade is asking for a refund or extension of the expiration of his annual golf pass.
Do you want us to vote on each one separate? Or,
Yeah, I think that would be the appropriate thing to do.
okay, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
What is your motion?
I make a motion to, because of the pandemic and the border closing, to extend the people from Canada who were affected by 6 months.
Is there a second?
I want to say that we're talking about Mr. Wade right now, so I think we can move on his request.
He was denied. He had
Right,
to-
I'm saying, but Mr.
He
Wade,
had to return, so his pass, I'm
Mr.
saying.
Wade is who we're talking about, not all Canadians.
Well, you're going to have more of them. That's what this is
They-
about.
they need to
This
come
is-
request.
This is a separate one.
Vote to extend his time by 6 months.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Madam President,
Yes, Director Schroeder.
if we start doling out money like this, we'll be flooded.
This
So
is,
I urge everyone on the board to vote no on these, both of them.
Madam President,
Director Collins?
this is strictly to be stated due to border closing from COVID. You wouldn't be eligible if you were in Nebraska and you stayed home. This is because they were in another country and they couldn't get in here. And it would extend their time. They're only here for 6 months. So even if you extend 6 months, chances are they're only going to get a month's usage out of that, because they can only be here for 6. That's Canadian law.
Okay, are we ready for a vote?
I actually would like to ask management what your recommendation is on this.
Madam President, Director McAdam, it has been RCSC's policy not to make exceptions to their policies. If there is a policy that needs to change, then we should change the policy so that it's true for everyone. When you do something for one person or one situation, you start to create a problem in the process of enforcing our policies. It also creates a huge problem for us in working with our frontline staff to know what to do and what not to do. So my recommendation is if you're going to change this or grant this, then you should follow that up by also requesting a change in policy.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, going for a vote. Vice President Eggy?
I'm going to say no.
Secretary Lair?
No.
Director Akins?
No.
Director Schroeder?
No.
Director Hofer?
No.
Director McAdam?
I abstain.
Can't abstain.
Okay, Director Collins?
I was told I could.
Yes.
And I vote no.
I vote no, too.
I'm sorry, I skipped you, Sheila. Okay, and that one then dies. General Manager Eck.
Madam President, Board of Directors, Mrs. Wood renewed her all-course surcharge golf pass for $800 on January 31st, 2020, and played 12 times for a value of $372. Mr. Wood renewed his all-course surcharge pass for $800 on March 13th, 2020, and played 1 time for a $31 value. Canadians' Prime Minister urged all Canadians to return home on March 14th, 2020. The Woods flew home on March 15th, hoping to get vaccinated so that they could return to Sun City as soon as possible, and again use their golf passes. On February 16, 2021, 13 months after Mrs. Woods' purchase and 11 months after Mr. Woods' purchase, the Woods contacted RCSC asking for a refund or credit for future use after the pandemic ends and life returns to normal.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
What is your motion?
I move to extend their pass by 6 months.
Is there a second? Okay, that motion dies due to lack of second. Okay, moving on. I'm going to member comments. Marcia, has anyone signed up to speak?
Andrea Day.
Okay. When you approach the microphone, we ask that you state your name and member number. While we do not have a time limit for speaking, we do ask that you are considerate of time so everyone who wants will have a chance to speak. If you make comments and then want to return a second time, we ask that you wait until everyone gets an opportunity to speak, and then if timing allows, you can return for additional comments.
Andrea Day, 136264. I am a member of the Water Volleyball Club. Like many other clubs, we were told we could not open until Phase 3. We were disappointed but understood that RCSC had our safety as their #1 priority. Now it seems that there is no reason for us to wait until Phase 3 to play. Recently, RCSC discontinued mask usage at the walking pools. There is no social distancing, and you have clusters of people walking and talking. The lanes at the walking pool are 8 feet wide, with no limit to who is in that space. Water volleyball limits the number of people to 3 across in a 20-foot area. That gives each person more than 6 feet of separation, or as we like to call it, our bubble. Even prior to COVID, we all try to stay in our bubble. Yes, people do move towards the ball, But these incidents are no different from the walkers in the pool or pickleball players who aren't even in chlorinated water. Our sanitation process for signing in would be having a clean cup and dirty cup for our pens. Balls would be tossed into the water. What's better than chlorine for sanitation? We are respectfully requesting the RCSC Board of Directors allow water volleyball to begin play again. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Andrea, have you talked with Director Herring on this operations?
Actually, we talked to Myrna, and she said we could not because it was a club activity.
Okay, again, is it something, Chris, that they should come to you on? You can schedule an appointment with Mr. Herring on that?
So is this something that the board has to decide on, or is this something that he could decide on?
It is something, if you can show him how you can safely do this, he will make that decision then.
Well, I guess what my question is what's the difference between, and I guess this is where the confusion comes for a lot of us that are sitting here today, is what's the difference between club play and play? So, for example, I'm in the pool, I'm jumping around and walking in the pool. What's the difference between that and playing water volleyball? What's the difference between me playing pickleball and club pickleball play? It seems to me that it's all the same, and for some reason it's being dissected, and that's what I think is creating most of the problems here, is that you're picking and choosing, and it's really all the same.
And again, those are good questions that you should ask Chris Herring when you meet with him.
Madam President?
Yes, Secretary.
Yeah, I just have a question. Did you alter your game of play or your configuration from pre-COVID to what your recommendation is now to?
Well, we submitted a form that had a diagram of Oakmont Pool. We measured it and figured out how many people could be across. Normally, it's in the busy times, we can put 4 across on the front line, but we did recommend changing it to 3 across. Now, if you have 6 people on a court, if you limit 6 players to each side, we could put a rope across 3 foot on each side of the net. So that would give the players in the front row 6 feet of separation face to face. And then we would have 7 feet front to back if we had 6 people on the court. So the person behind me would be 7 feet behind me, and then 6 feet side to side. Now, if we went to 9 players on the court, we would still have that 6 foot front to front, face to face, and then we would have 4.5 feet front to back, and still 6 feet side to side where you're talking to people.
Madam President?
Yes, Director Aiken.
Did you, you're not the club president, right?
No.
Did you discuss this with your club president?
I did. She is out of town.
And she's going to present the new plan to Chris? Because that seems like that's a plan you submitted before. I think if you resubmit that plan to your club president now, he will take a second look at it.
Well, I'm the club secretary, I'm the treasurer, club treasurer. Unfortunately, the club president is out of state with a sick family member.
Okay.
And I play pickleball, and I do clay, and I do several other things. And there's a lot of people that, as you find, you have people that play.
So you can
things.
actually submit that for your club president to
Yes.
Chris Herring? Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Ken Stencil? Nope.
Okay.
Okay. Patrick Gannon?
My name is Patrick Gannon, member 150056. I read the treasurer's report that was part of the materials sent out to all members in advance of this meeting, and I have 3 question areas, and I'm not sure who exactly to direct them to, Madam Chair.
Well, the person most likely you would like to talk to is our Director of Finance, which
Okay.
is Bill Cook.
Okay. Then this will make it easier. So my questions are mostly about the assets section of the February 28th, 2021 balance sheet. I understand the concept of having a cash reserve, and I see that the cash reserve is currently $2.5 million. Can someone explain briefly to me and other members what is the $5,439,871 capital reserve for? And then related to that, how is it decided what that capital reserve balance will be set at?
Director of Finance, Bill Cook.
Mr. Gannon, Madam President, Board of Directors. So your first question is related to the cash reserve of $2.5 million. So we have restricted and unrestricted funds. This was designated by the board, and I couldn't tell you when, but it was designated by the board as an unrestricted fund that would allow us to utilize the funds for any type of, specific emergencies. I believe that it was set up after the sundial. No, I'm sorry. Okay. So that's what it's set up for. It's unrestricted for operations in the event that we would need it. The capital reserve, those are restricted funds, and that is for capital projects only. And that is set up for any type of capital project that may come up, and it is restricted, and the board would have to direct how we would spend that money. It has this, okay, so it's restricted with the same restrictions as PIF, okay? And then the relationship between the $5.4 million in the capital reserve and the PIF, so the PIF $20 million can only be used for PIF projects, whereas the $5.4 million is not PIF, but is a capital project. Does that make sense?
Add a little comment because I got the history. The capital reserve was set up in June of 2006. The sundial roof collapsed onto the pool area. And it was a $5.3 million project with no reserve monies available. And so we had to operate, and they take that out of our operating account because we had no fund, and sue the insurance company, because any big claim like that, you usually have to sue the insurance company to get the money. So we had a period of time with no money to repair the roof and in suing the insurance company. So from that point forward, the board of directors developed the capital reserve, which is for an emergency reserve, should something like that unforeseen happen, and then there would be funds available. So it's not used, it's not budgeted. Like the PIF is budgeted and that money is spent. The capital reserve is not. Right.
Madam Chair, finally, the last one is probably very simple, but the question is, in the report, in those materials from the treasurer, it said there was $756,599 collected that increased the Preservation Improvement Fund. So my question is, that's $750,000. So in the month of February, where does that money come from? Is that simply all new $3,500
Yes.
money?
Yes, that is from
$750,000 in 1
new people
month?
coming in.
And does that like happen almost every month? $750,000?
No. No. No.
Oh, okay, I was just, thank you.
Oh, Madam President?
Yes.
I think that you would be happy about that because that's what keeps our assessment fees down.
Oh, I'm thrilled. I'm just trying to understand the flow of funds and how these things happen and how often they happen, and so, thank you.
Thank you.
Julie Powell.
Julie Powell, 19808. I saw that videotaping meetings was taken off of the agenda, so that was out. But I just wanted to thank you all for doing so much discussing issues today, so this is what we were looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others, Marcia?
Ron Kopitz.
Oops. Good morning, Ron Kappas. Number is 146015. Madam President, Board of Directors, thank you for this opportunity. At this time, I'd like any softball player that's here, that's still here, if you'd stand. There's a league starting right now, so about 100 left. So they're playing ball right now. So thank you. You may sit down. I just have fun stuff. I really liked, I'm going to just make a comment before I get into this. I really liked the dialogue this morning. I thought that you did a great job discussing things, getting to the root of things, and sharing with each other. That's the first time I've seen that, and I think it's really important. And I think the audience needs to see that you do have that kind of discussion and consensus, because I think it's so important if you're going to represent people and get things done. So I appreciate that. I just wanted to come here this morning mainly to thank you for all the improvements and stuff you've made at the softball park since Christmas. The Sun Bowl playing surface is not only safe, it's super safe, and it's dust-free. And I'll say it again, it's safe and it's dust-free. It has not been that way until this year, and it didn't happen until after Christmas this year. And I'm going to give Myrna and Chris Herring the kudos for that, because they're the ones that got it done. News is spread everywhere, and everybody that's been around our field loves it because it's such a nice field to play on now. And by the way, I'm going to invite you to ball games tomorrow. They start at 10 o'clock. There's going to be 3 games tomorrow, so if you want to come to a ball game and see what it's like, I encourage you. Anyway, we've been told it equals the minor league fields around. The lights, the motion lights that were put on the small buildings and the breaker bars on the doors has added major security to the park, as well as a cobalt vault that has a box that has a lock on it. So now it's much safer. The locks, there's coded locks now on the bathroom doors. So we don't have vagrants in there now that come in and wash their clothes in the toilet, and they get flushed down the toilet and go in the sewer line, and we have to dig it up and fix it. So that is a big deal. So that's another thing that you've done, and I appreciate that, and so does our membership. Recently, we inducted 6 members to the Sun City and Sun City West Hall of Fame, and it's not because of their playing ability. They got inducted to the Hall of Fame because of servanthood to Sun City West, and to their communities. And to me, that is a big deal, because when you read their resumes, they're incredible. Presently, I'm working with Chris and Myrna on a 3 to 5 year plan for the club and the park, because I think people, what they don't do is they don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. So I think planning is so important. So I'm a visionary person, have a lot of ideas. You've already heard a little bit what they are, so I'm not going to get into that, but I think you do plan, and when you plan, good things will happen with that. These are just a few things going on at the park. Again, I want to thank you for your time today. Dealing with some sensitive, emotional issues, and you did a great job with it, and I thank you.
Thank you.
There are no more signatures, Madam President.
Okay. So at this time, we open up the floor for anyone who wishes to make a comment that did not get signed up.
Thank you, board members, Madam Chair. I'm Anna Rose Lilly, and my member number is 123260. And I'm here to bring up a subject that has been raised before, and that is the policy that charges the annual fee for single owners to be the same as for couples but doesn't allow comparable access to the facilities. This policy really is discriminatory against familial status because basically most people who are two people on a title to a property are married. So it basically discriminates against single people. And I think it goes a little further, and it discriminates against women more than men because there are a larger number of single women in Sun City as opposed to single male owners. I was just wondering, you seem to be, the RCSC is very profitable, and it seems that there is capacity within the rec centers. Has any kind of a study been done or that could be shared that indicates what undue burden it would put on the facility to extend to allow single owners an extra membership card annually? I was thinking if, if a single owner would name one person, you could set a variety of criteria that would say, can't be anyone who lives, in the area now. It's got to be someone from out of state who comes to visit periodically or something. Or if you wanted to change it, the name of the person throughout the year, you could have a service fee attached to that, which could be a source of revenue. There doesn't seem to be any flexibility on the part of the board whatsoever to consider that this is discriminatory. And I think the demographic of owners in Sun City has changed significantly since the 60s. Probably the major majority of, probably almost all of them were couples. But now as demographics change and families change, tends to be more single people. And I, for one, I do own 2 properties in Sun City. One of them's a rental. I wouldn't be arguing for any benefit for that. But for my personal residence, when my sister comes to visit me, I'm already paying almost $1,000 a year. It would be nice to be able to give her a membership, a full privileged pass. First of all, would you consider doing some type of, looking at what your exposure would be, how much that would bite into your profits, and how much capacity would actually be impinged upon as a result of that? Because I know, I don't use the facilities very often myself. I do them seasonally, actually. So I don't know, if you had one other person for the single people in the area, would it really cause undue harm to the facilities?
Madam President?
Secretary Lair?
This comes up, your concern comes up on a regular basis. And I will just tell you that there is no intention to discriminate against anybody. But basically, what we're trying to do is to create an operating budget. And in order to do that, we need to know where that money's going to come from. So we don't discriminate against somebody who lives in a house that only has one person in it. What we're doing is we're assessing per rooftop, per house, whether you have one person living there or 6 people living there.
Yes, ma'am. That's completely understood.
Okay, so with that being said, it's a lot easier, and I think in the past, and I'm sure Jan can elaborate on this, Sun City has gone various ways over the years. They've gone to the individuals, and then the one person dies, and then they've done it every which way from Sunday. And what we found is that this is the most consistent. It helps us. This is a big organization. We have to set this budget up. We don't know people moving in and people moving out, and somebody dies. And I mean, you're talking about a logistical nightmare when you've got 20-some thousand homes here. So,
well, you know how many single owners you have, and maybe if you said, okay, count double the usage for every single owner, that would be pretty easy to calculate. It doesn't impact the incoming revenue at all.
Well,
it would not.
You would think it would, but it's like, I'm just telling you from the history, and when you look at from a, trying to establish an operating budget every year when you're talking about this volume and complexity, And what you don't understand either is that, you know, we have some people who live in assisted living or a senior apartments. Some of those within the Sun City boundaries are part of RCSC, meaning that they pay to be part of this, and some do not. It gets to be very complex. There's so many little nuances.
Well, if I may, ma'am, in area code 85373, I looked at the tax records for that zip code in Sun City, not the other one, not 85351, but I could look at that later. But it looks like there would be when I eliminated all the trusts and I looked at and eliminated the couples and I looked at 2,900 homes in 85373 that are owned by either single women or single men. And by the way, it was 60 to 40 women to men. So I know that, you know, there are ways of looking at it, and there are ways it would be your expenses that would increase. Your revenue would not decrease if you did this. But you would basically be able to be more fair, and it is disparate, kind of an unintended way of discriminating against people who are not married and people and women.
Madam President, thank you. Ma'am, right here. First of all, thank you very much. I appreciate your concern. I think what you're asking really is for the board to look at changing the definition of what a member is. Because currently, we have basically three things. 55 plus, somebody in the house has to be 55 plus, and I don't think there's going to be a problem with that. You can't have your primary residence within 75 miles of Sun City. And the third is you have to be a deeded property owner. That's the problem, because if we were to give you, let's say, as a deeded property owner, 2 cards, now somebody else has got a member card and they're not a deeded property owner. And I'm always willing to work with people that want to change that definition, but it's got to be equitable. And the problem that I've found, and I've worked with several people over the years, I've been on the board 6 years, we've never been able to come up with something that's equitable to singles versus the two. As the secretary said, this has gone back and forth probably half a dozen times in the history of Sun City, where it's either per person or per property. And as the secretary rightly points out, it's really the only way to budget for our operational expenses. But if you can come up with a way that's equitable for everybody as far as changing the definition as to what a member is, because that's really what you're asking.
Well, maybe you make the household the member and maximum 2
Well,
people.
yeah, but you can't do that, because, you know, there are a lot of people that would not qualify necessarily, and you're one of them as far as your other house is concerned. And
For
so,
primary residence, though. I mean, that's pretty easy to define.
well, that would be something we could take a look at, but I'll tell you what, the problem, there are problems with that. And I'd be happy to talk to you about it some other time, but there are a ton of problems when you start changing that around, okay? Yes. It's not necessarily about the bucks. You know, on something like that, you keep it per property, as the secretary said, and she's absolutely correct in that. That gives us a much better handle as far as budgeting, okay? Because we know how many houses there are in Sun City. We don't know how many people are in each house, and there's really no way to find out.
Well, you do know that if there are 2 owners, those are the people who can use the facility. So, but anyway, I just ask you to understand for a moment that it does come off as being discriminatory, whatever the rationale is.
Okay.
Director
Collins.
Ma'am, I don't know if you know, there are residents in Sun City that only pay single. Because when the rule changed, they were grandfathered. So if they moved from their residence on one street to another, then they lost it. But there still are people that are grandfathered under that one resident policy.
Right. I do understand that. I know that also they are passing, they're selling their homes, and that's changing.
Yes.
So that revenue is definitely going to go up. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
I'm Dennis Robbins. My member number is 108235. I was not going to speak today, but what I saw today, the interaction of the board, as uncomfortable as it may have been at times, was exhilarating. I appreciate that. I appreciate your openness. I appreciate you talking with one another and challenging one another. I was not going to speak today, but I wanted to commend you for that. And I took a few margin notes here on some other things that I think need to be brought up. We have a legend, an honorable guest here today, and his name is Tate Douglas. And Tate is sitting right over there by our president, Ron Kopus. Why is he the legend? He's 93 years old. Look how engaged he is with softball. Thank you, Tate. Last year, I came before you as the vice president of Sun City Softball. We talked about contact, non-contact, that kind of stuff. We too have went through a change. We now have a new president, Ron Kopus, who just spoke with you. We have a new vice president, Keith Zellhofer, sitting back over here on our left. So you can see we're totally engaged. Out of our meeting last year, Mr. Herring did a wonderful job of coming over to our field, doing a tour of how we play, why this, why that. As a result, we were able to open up our field and play softball. Kudos to Chris for that and his staff coming over and doing that. Since that time, I've got 4 positives I wanted to share with you. Second positive, Ron touched on it. A new stabilizer infield was put in January, okay? The last time I played on a surface that nice and that safe and that secure and that dust-free was when I played in college. So we've got a field over here that's college level now because of Chris's effort, and I appreciate that. One person I'd like to mention, who was our previous president, Dan Braddock. You all know him. He is my third big positive, and that is 2 weeks ago, after a 3-month battle with cancer, Dan is no longer in chemo, no longer in radiation. We've got him a bike over there, or a bike to walk on, and yeah. That is my biggest positive in 2021. He's now walking up and down the driveway. I just talked to him the other day. His voice sounds better. I mean, what is he looking forward to? Getting back on the field with a bunch of us old guys and having some fun again. Lastly, I want to thank you for the opportunity to get back on the field with my brothers and sisters. My brothers and sisters from Sun City, and also my brothers and sisters from Sun City West. They are over there waiting to open their Christmas present. What is that Christmas present? This new infield that we've got over here that they're dying to get on the field and try. So thank you very much for your time. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
My name is Vernell King, 156139. And I used to tell people all about Sun City. My wife and I were snowbirds for 6 years, and then we decided to make it permanent last August. And now I don't tell people about Sun City because it is the best kept secret in the world. I just want you to know that. I do appreciate your interaction, and my comment is very simple, and you could probably direct me to who I need to talk to, but has anybody ever driven on West Gulf Hills Drive? Any of you guys ever driven on that? Well, I live on Gulf Hills Drive. And I know that I'm going to be secure no matter what happens, because every time a car comes through there at 1, 2, 3, or 4:30 in the morning, I hear it. Well, why do I hear it? Because I have gaps in the road all along Gulf Hills Drive. And I don't know who to talk to about maybe could we somehow get that fixed. That would be really great. Thank you so much.
Yes, Maricopa County. Thank you, Jan. Okay.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Madam President. My name is Les Litzenberger, 127100. I'm the president of the Vintage Vehicle Club, as a number of you are probably aware of. I have some thank yous to the board and et cetera down the road here who have helped facilitate the building of our new shop building. If you haven't been in there, you need to arrange for a tour. It's pretty amazing. We're really in awe of the way that this has come together, and it's going to be a real showpiece for our club and RCSC. Number two, thank you. Well, Myrna set us up with a meeting in here yesterday, and we got some business done, which was necessary to get set up for the move. And we appreciate the opportunity to use this facility for a meeting. I made notes on my palm as I was sitting there, so I have to refer to that. Farmers Market, I'll be going there right after this, and we really enjoy that. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to step back to the meeting just a second. Our rules and regulations allow for the board to award a lifetime membership to people who have served the club, some since the inception and some not so. I'll list off a few names that some of you will probably recognize. Number one was Bud Hines, who was the one who initiated this club, pulled the people together, was told, you'll never find enough people to do that. And well, we sit at 250 paid this year. We were a little over 400 paid last year. Bud Hines, number one. John Bramer, number two. I'm sure a number of you know John Bramer. He was another instrumental man beginning the club, served as president for a few years going in. Next was Al Baxley, another one of that first. I think he's like number 4 on the list. Next one would be lost him, I'm sorry. Troy Janicki is our current vice president. He is also in the vice president, or in that list. And Scott Donkers, who's another initial starter of the club. So that's just for your information that these people have been here and always been here and show up every time. Consider, please, you've opened up a number of things. We have been not allowed during this COVID thing to have car shows on our CSC property. The stated reason for that is that we don't have control over who stops and attends the car shows. Could be anybody off the street. Well, I want you to consider that it could be anyone off the street who stops at the farmer's market as well, where I'm going to be going afterwards. So thank you again for your service and what you've done for the clubs, all of the clubs. And the gentleman from the softball really expressed it well, so I really appreciate your service. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience?
Anna Rose Lilly, 123260. Just very quickly, I do appreciate everything you do. The place is beautiful. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. It's amazing. One thing that I thought was a little bit unusual, though, today that I witnessed was not extending, in light of COVID, not granting Canadians some kind of extension on their payment for their golf fees. I mean, we paid full price during COVID and the facility shut down, and we accepted that. And I think, you could have a little bit of an international incident going on with the Canadians, because we have a lot of Canadian visitors, and they, I think it seems a little bit harsh for the board to say, no, we don't care your borders closed. We don't care you would really come down here anyway. I think you should probably reconsider that and consider extending something to our Canadian people who actually, buy property here. I've had Canadian guests visit me, and they've gone on to purchase homes here, and they couldn't even come here and spend the time in the home during the winter that they wanted to, because of COVID. So I would really urge you to reconsider that decision.
Thank you.
I'll be very quick. My name is Catherine Spindler, and my number is 77505. Please, please, please open up Sun City. We are desperate to get out and do our stuff. I'm vice president of an exercise club, and we still haven't been able to meet because we have too many members. But I'll take that up with someone else. But please considering opening us up. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other members from the audience would like to speak? Okay, moving on to board. Any comments from the board? Okay, our next meeting is April 12th, 2021, 9 o'clock here at Sundial. I need a motion to adjourn.
I motion.
Treasurer Rooney, I need a second. Vice President Egge, all those in favor?
Aye.
This is a copyrighted production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.